Hello guys. Okay, so getting into part 3 of our booklets here. We've worked on addition for pretty much the whole time, so now we're switching to something a little bit different, and we're going to be doing telling time. Okay, so this booklet is telling time to the half hour. It's 01.44, telling time to the half hour, 1 of 1. Okay, so looking at just this learn part, we're going to figure out how we can tell time to the half hour. Okay, so this is a clock, just like any clock you would see. I have one here that we're going to use a lot as well. So on a clock, you have 2 hands, okay? You have the red hand and the blue hand. Well, my clock has red and blue, but typically you have a short one and a long one. Do you all already know which one of those hands does what? So the shorter hand is your hour and the longer hand is your minute, okay? So the minute and the hour hands of a clock move in a circle. They follow the order of the numbers. So if you watch as I move my minute hand, it's gonna follow the numbers. And my hour hand is moving as well, okay? So if the minute hand points at 6, which is right here, we read it as half past, okay? So right here, I would say that this hour hand is between 12 and 1. So the time here is half past 12, okay? So half past 12 would be 12:30. So it's after 12 o'clock, okay? Because here's my 12, it's after 12 o'clock, but it's not quite to 1 o'clock yet, okay? So when we're half past, it means we're halfway to 1, but we're not there yet. Or halfway to your hour, your next hour, okay? So let's look at this one. The minute hand here is blue. So the minute hand is the longer, right? The shorter hand is the hour hand. The minute hand is pointing at the 6. And the hour hand, if you can see it right here, is kind of right in between the 6 and the 7, okay? So if it's half past 6, that means that it's before 7 o'clock. It's not 7 o'clock yet because that green hand hasn't made it to that 7, right? Does that make sense? Okay, so down here, the minute hand, now our longer hand is the minute, remember? Minute hand is pointing at the 6. The hour hand is between 11 and 12. What time is it? So our times on a clock, if you can see my clock here, they go in increments of 5. So kind of counting by 5s, right? So I'm gonna make my clock look just like the one on your all's paper at the bottom. Give me just a moment. Just gotta spin it to where I need it to be. Almost there. Okay, here we go. So my minute hand is pointing at the 6. The hour hand you can see is between the 11 and the 12. So what time is it? So it would be 11, it's still 11, because even though it's halfway there, it's not to 12 o'clock yet. And it's 11, when I look at my minutes, I wanna look at my numbers counting by 5. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So that would mean it is 11:30, okay? So now, on our guided practice here, we want to match each of these clocks to the correct time, okay? And remember that one way to say this, when it's the half hour, we say it's half past each of these, okay? So this time right here, I'm going to make it on my clock, just so that it's a little bit easier for you to see maybe. Right here. All right, so this time right here, I would say, I know that it's half because the minute hand is halfway around, all the way around, but it's half past what? Our choices are half past 11, half past 4, or half past 8. So we know it's not half past 11 because the hour hand isn't anywhere near 11. It's not anywhere near 8 either. But here, I see 4 o'clock. And I see that it's almost to 5 o'clock, but not quite. So it's half past 4. So we want this one to match, okay? Next one, let's make this time. And if you have a clock at home, feel free to make these times if you would like. All right, so this one. Remember the minute hand, the blue one, is the longer one. It's going to be always pointing at the 6 if it's half past, which is what your whole book is going to be doing, okay? So this one looks like this, okay? So at this time, are we half past 11 or half past 8? What do you think? That's right, it is half past 11, okay? We can see the 11. We can see that it's halfway in between it, not quite to the 12, okay? Which means that this one should be half past 8, but we always like to check it just to be sure, right? We'll keep spinning. There we go. All right, so minute hand is half past. The hour hand is right in between the 8 and the 9. So it's not to the 9 yet. So it's before 9 o'clock, but it is after 8 o'clock, okay? So half past 8. That is correct. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so we've got to read the clocks on some of these, okay? So number 2, we're going to read the clock and write the time. Sam's father is going to his office at blank in the morning. And I'm going to make that time on here just because that clock's a little bit small. So this is the time that it's showing you. What time would you say that Sam's father is going to his office? So we would say it is half past, which number? 9, that's right. And here's how we write that. Half past 9, okay? Ken is at the beach with his parents at half past, which number? 1, that's correct. Here's 1. We're halfway past it. We're not quite to 2 yet. So half past 1. And then finally, the Garcia family is having dinner at, so when we do time, we always want to make sure that the times we're writing for answers make sense, right? Like it would make sense that Sam's father goes to his office at half past 9 because that's the morning. It would make sense that you're at the beach at 1 in the afternoon. Now for this one, having dinner, they're having dinner at half past 7, okay? Make sure that makes sense too. As long as it makes sense, probably right. Half past 7. Okay. All right, so let's go to, so we're gonna read some of these. I just wanna make sure that you all know how to do these, and there's an example for you. You're gonna have to write 3 times here, okay? So this clock right here, the time is, I know that the hour hand is right in between the 2 and the 3. This one, remember, if it's at the 6, it's half past, okay? So we're at half past 2, so that means it's after 2 o'clock, but it's before 3 o'clock. All right, so let's do this one. So if we make this time, let's see if I can make it on my clock. All right, looks like this. And this one gets a little tricky because they're so close together, okay? The hour and the minute hand. So the time is half past, which number? 5, so half past 5. So that means it's after what time? 5 o'clock. And we can just write 5 o'clock. But it's before 6 o'clock. Yes, that minute hand is on 6 o'clock, but that hour hand is not there yet, so it's not yet 6 o'clock. Okay. Now all of these are going to kind of be the same thing that we just did, so remember to look back at page 5 for your examples if you get stuck on those. Now this one, I want us to do a couple of these because we've got to draw it in, okay? Now, let's see if I can get this just a little bit closer. we want to draw in these times here, okay? So first one is 7:30. All right, I'm going to use my marker just so we can see this a little bit better. So 7:30. All right, so if you have a clock at home, I would recommend making this time on your clock first before you draw it in your book, just to make sure it's correct, okay? So 7:30. I'm going to find 7. My hour's at 7. I'm going to keep going with the minute hand until I get to 7:30. Here I am. You can see my hour hand is halfway in between 7 and 8, and my minute hand is 7:30. So I want my clock to look just like that clock, okay? Remember, the hour hand is shorter, minute hand is longer, okay? All right. Let's do this one also with the drawing. Remember, everything in this book is going to be 7:30, okay? So you're not going to have any other times your minute hand. Your long hand is always going to be pointing at that 6. The only thing that's going to change is your hour hand, and you want to make sure it's right in between the two numbers, okay? 2:30. So I need to get my hour hand, my red hand, all the way to the 2, and then go it's at 2, but I need to be halfway past it. There we go. 7:30. I'm right in between the 2 and the 3, okay? So now let's make this match that. Hour hand, short in between, minute hand down here. Okay? So now you're going to draw C and D on your own. Finish up that one too. Okay. Now this one, they're tricking this here a little bit because a couple of these times are not 7:30. Okay? So let's look at this clock right here. It looks like it's right in between the 7 and the 8. And it is 7:30. The minute hand is pointing to the 6. That means it's 7:30. So it is 7:30. Which number? If we're in between the 7 and the 8, you're 7:30 your first number. So 7:30. Okay, this one should be 7:30. Now this one, same thing, 7:30, but we're in between the 8 and the 9. So now we're 8:30. Okay? They tried to trick you a little bit by putting in a couple that were not 7:30. Okay, so this one is just, let's see, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Okay? All right. This one, you're just matching it to the correct time. Okay? Now, number 6, I would like us to do, just to make sure that, remember, when we're doing this, that our times make sense. So Sam is brushing his teeth before going to sleep at what time? So we're in between the 8 and the 9. We know we're 7:30, so we're 8:30. Okay? The rest of these, you're going to do the same thing, okay? Look at the problem, see where it would match, where would it make the most sense. All right, I want to do number 7 because this one can get a little bit tricky sometimes, okay? So we're going to arrange the scenarios to make a story. So each one of these pictures is happening at a certain time. We want to put them in order from first, second, third, and fourth. So what would you do first in the morning, then what, and then what, okay? So this looks like this little boy is at school. What time do we see on the clock there? 10 o'clock. Okay, so it's probably 10 o'clock in the morning, right? He's brushing his teeth. Ooh, I see the sunshine. That tells me it's probably the morning, right? Now, this one shows me 7:30 in between 6 and 7, so 7:30 in the morning. I see the moon, so that tells me he's probably going to sleep, okay? 10 o'clock, and then going to school at 7:30. So which one of these would happen first in your day? What do you all think? Right, it would be getting up and brushing your teeth. That was the earliest thing we saw, right? That was happening at 6:30. So I'm going to put a number 1, okay? Now, the next thing, after he brushes his teeth, he's not going to go back to sleep, right? And he's not just going to show up at school. First, he's going to have to walk to school. So we'll put a number 2 in that one. Now again, he's not going to go right to sleep. So next, he's probably going to be at school doing his work. And lastly, he would go to sleep, okay? Now, obviously, you would have some other things in between there, but those would make the most sense for our story, okay? The rest of your book, you're just matching activities to the time. Now, this, you're going to read this and write down what you would do at this time. So at 11:30 in the morning, what are you doing? At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, what do you do? 9 o'clock at night and 10:30, okay? This one, you're going to have to see if the clocks show the correct time. If they do, you put a check. This one, is it showing 3:30? It is showing 3:30, but remember, if it's 3:30, the hour hand needs to be in between the 3 and the 4. So that one is not. You would have to show what would it look like. Again, do it on a clock first, okay? And that's about it for this book. Please let me know if you all have any questions.